How can the Texans put the cherry on top of what has been a fantastic offseason in Houston so far in the 2024 NFL Draft? We're going to talk about it here today. Welcome into Rogue Football. I am your host, Jordan Lugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here. We have got our Houston Texans 7-round 2024 mock draft. What a magical 2023 season it was for an upstart Texans team. Brand new head coach, brand new rookie quarterback, traded up to get Will Anderson. They were maligned for the move, outside of a few smart people around the football world, including myself, who, yes, generally speaking, do you want to trade up for players in the first round that are not quarterbacks? I understand the argument against it, but the Texans had a lot of draft capital to play with, and they valued Will Anderson at the top of the draft, along with CJ Stroud. They went and got both of them, and it paid big-time dividends in year one. Made the playoffs, won their division. CJ Stroud gets to build on what was an incredible rookie year. He's vaulted all the way close to the top of the list of the best young quarterbacks in the game today. Then you get to this offseason. Boatload of cap space. They go add Danielle Hunter, pass rusher, wide receiver Stephon Diggs, Danico Autry, Azeez Al-Shaair, Joe Mixon, Foley Fatukasi, Jeff Okudah, CJ Henderson. They added defensive line depth. They added Tommy Townsend to help on special teams. I mean, what an offseason so far for these Houston Texans, coming off of a surprisingly impressive first year for D'Amico Ryans, for Bobby Slowick, for CJ Stroud and company, right, in Houston. And they still have $24 million in salary cap space. Obviously, they don't have a ton of needs. When you look at their roster at this point, there are some that we can look at, certainly. 9 draft picks, no first rounders after trading back with the Vikings, but you do have 2 second-round picks, which is huge, very valuable. I think that they could use another cornerback, even though they added Jeff Okudah to pair with Derek Stingley. Also brought in CJ Henderson, former Jacksonville Jaguar. Hasn't had the career many expected so far. I think interior offensive line, when you talk about Kenyon Green, hasn't really worked out for him so far. A guy that did deal with injury last year. And then you also look at Shaq Mason. He's no young pup. He is up there in age. They brought him in. He's still playing at a high level. You did bring in Kendrick Green as well last year when there was injuries up front, but I think you could stand to upgrade the interior of the offensive line, especially at left guard. And then I think you can bring in edge depth as well. Excited to see how this plays out for the Houston Texans in the 2024 NFL Draft. But I've got my mock draft here for y'all. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Really appreciate you being here. So let's get it popping here. 42 overall. Texans, I think they could go in a lot of different directions at this spot. For me, I love the idea of adding cornerback Max Melton out of Rutgers. His brother, a Green Bay Packer, wide receiver. Both of these guys very athletic. They come from an athletic family. Melton has length. He has speed. He has explosiveness. He's quick. He's fluid mover out there at corner. I love the idea of bringing him in here because I think he can be a very good complementary piece to Derek Stingley Jr. And of course, Jeff Okudah, a very talented player. CJ Henderson's talented for that matter. But I think that Max Melton has the chance to beat out both of them in year one because supreme athlete, very good on tape. And when you look at what he can do for you, I think he can play man or zone. So he has scheme versatility, right? And he can also align in the nickel or outside. So he has alignment versatility. Yes, you do have your starting nickel still locked in, but I just think Max Melton is going to break the starting lineup sooner rather than later. And when you talk about a Jeff Okudah, he's dealt with injuries throughout his career. CJ Henderson has been on a roller coaster of a career so far. And so I think Max Melton gives you a stabilizing force potentially at 42 overall that can come in and play opposite Derek Stingley Jr., both in 2024 and for the long term. And if Jeff Okudah works out, then Max Melton can be your long-term answer potentially in the slot as well. So there's a lot of different ways this can go, but Max Melton helps you in that secondary, which in my opinion is where the Texans are weakest, again, at cornerback opposite Derek Stingley Jr. 59 overall. Offensive lineman Dominic Puny for your second round pick here, Houston Texans. Puny is a player that I think has 5-position flex. He is a very good athlete, not like a dominant straight line runner, but good quick feet to mirror movements. I think that, he played left tackle for Kansas this past year. He's also played guard. He took center reps at the Senior Bowl. This is the type of player that massively upgrades your depth, but I think that he can come in and compete right away to start at left guard. I think he's got that much talent. I think he would really round out that offensive line nicely. And at very worst, you're talking about the ultimate swing player on your offensive line. You want to keep C.J. Stroud upright. You want to create push in the run game for Joe Mixon, for the rest of these guys. Dominic Puny can absolutely do that. He has good length. He knows how to weaponize his hands. He has punch. He can really move you off the ball, but again, a very good athlete as well. So I love Dominic Puny for the Houston Texans there. If you can't tell, Jacksonville Jaguars fan here. So landing these type of prospects for the Houston Texans does pain me a bit. I do think the Houston Texans are right now the best roster on paper in the AFC South. And I think that they might have the best coaching staff in the AFC South. I really do think that keeping Bobby Slowick as your offensive coordinator for year 2 of the C.J. Stroud experience was a huge, huge win for the Texans. And D'Amico Ryans is one of the best defensive minds in the game. Speaking of that defense, the Texans have a 3rd-round pick at 86 overall. Edge Braylon Trice has had a very weird lead up to the NFL draft process, if you will, right? He had a very good career at Washington. Doesn't have the best length. He's not a great athlete overall. You saw like he came in super light at the combine, then didn't run well. So maybe there's some doubt on Braylon Trice around the NFL right now. But if you're talking about bringing him in as a 3rd edge, as a rotational pass rusher behind Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, I think you can get really excited about that. He knows how to weaponize his hands. He knows how to get to the quarterback. I think he's going to play much bigger than what he came in weight-wise at the combine. I think he's going to be able to have some ability to push the pocket, but also, again, win with his hands, win with his technicality, and be a very effective 3rd edge rusher for the Houston Texans. I think these 3 picks in the first 3 rounds would get you really fired up. And then 4th round, Texans have a lot of draft capital here on day 3. We're going to trade up, give up 123, 188, and 189 to get up to 107 overall to land Mekhi Wingo out of LSU because, again, you want to add more and more pass rush juice to this Texans defensive front. Braylon Trice does that. I think Wingo does that as well. A prospect who, not the biggest, doesn't have the greatest length. He's 6 foot, 32-inch arms, but a guy who knows how to rush the passer, a guy who plays with natural leverage. He's incredibly explosive. You're not asking him to come in and be a starter for you right away. What you're asking him to do is help you get after the quarterback and be a rotational defensive line player. I think Wingo can do that in a big way, even in his rookie year. At 127 overall, linebacker Cedric Gray is still on the board. The Texans do have some good answers at linebacker when you talk about Azeez Al-Shaair. They're still trying to develop Christian Harris. They had Henry To'o play a lot last year. But I think Cedric Gray, with his length, his athleticism, I think he is a jack of all trades and master of none right now at the linebacker position, but he has the requisite athleticism, length, and play demeanor, and I think intelligence to become a starting linebacker in this league, an effective starting linebacker next to Azeez Al-Shaair, or maybe even the leader of that linebacker room down the road. So I think he fits well into D'Amico Ryans' defense and fits well with this Houston Texans current roster build. At 238 overall, I still think you could stand to upgrade the back end of your tackle depth. And I think offensive tackle Caden Wallace out of Penn State has good length, decent athlete overall, a guy that has played a lot of football and I think has the ability, he needs to develop consistency, but ability to at the very least be a swing tackle behind your 2 studs you do have starting on your offensive line at offensive tackle. At 247 overall, the Texans have a pretty loaded wide receiver core. Obviously, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, you bring in Stephon Diggs, you have some other guys down the depth chart you feel good about, but wide receiver Jalen Coker is too good to pass on. Stephon Diggs does not appear to be a long-term answer for the Houston Texans. He's obviously in his 30s now, only on the 1-year deal, but Jalen Coker, I think, can complement what you have in Nico Collins and Tank Dell and potentially carve out a role as the Texans' long-term wide receiver 3, as a guy who can release off the line of scrimmage. He's 6'3", plus, 200 plus pounds, has very good length, explosiveness, can go up and get the football, but he's a good route runner and has a good release package and has good size and is able to attack the football in the air. So I think that that would be a nice get for the Texans there at the end of the draft. I think this type of draft that would continue to push the Texans forward. Again, you kind of address some needs early on, but you get them with players that are good value at those spots. I mean, landing Max Melton at 42 is a really talented cornerback that definitely has starting chops in the NFL, NFL bloodlines as well. And then Dominic Puny, I think one of the most underrated prospects in this class, even though most people do see him as a mid to late day 2 player. I have him early second round. I think he's going to be a starter in the NFL for a long time. Braylon Trice slips down the board a little bit. You're able to add that edge 3, and then you're just able to add a lot of depth throughout the rest of the NFL draft here. And if you're a Texans fan, I would love to know what you think about this one. You can drop a comment in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.